This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. You can visit their store by using my referral link in the description below. Hi everyone, I'm Hone, and today is Wednesday, and that means it's time for this 42nd edition of Deck History. The majority of the episodes of this series examine decks that existed for a long time, and I trace how they've changed over time, but sometimes we zoom in on one specific, historically significant deck that didn't actually exist for all that long. Last week's poll gave viewers an option between two decks that quickly got banned out of existence after dominating a single event, and in the end, Legacy Flash Hulk came out on top in a really close poll. It's actually the first close poll we've had in a while, so that was a nice change. So Flash Hulk decks look to combine Flash and Protean Hulk for various combo shenanigans. The Hulk dying lets you search up a whole bunch of creatures, and the idea is to search up creatures who give you some sort of instant win combo, and for the brief time this deck was legal, it pretty much broke the Legacy format. In this video, we'll look at the genesis of the Flash Hulk deck, we'll look at the two main variants of it, and we'll talk about the event that it dominated that led to it getting banned in 2007. So first, let's talk about why this deck showed up that year. After all, Flash was printed way back in 1996's Mirage, and Protean Hulk was newer, but it was printed a year before Flash Hulk decks ever showed up in 2006's Guild Pact. So why didn't the deck appear starting in 2006? Well, it all starts with Flash receiving an erratum on May 15th, 2007. Sort of. In actuality, Flash actually had an old errata removed on that date. So, the way Flash was originally worded, you could cast Flash and put any creature in your hand on the battlefield. Then you had to pay the cost of that creature, minus 2 generic mana, or you had to sacrifice it. This original wording proved to be a problem in combination with Academy Rector, which could search up Yawgmoth's Bargain on turn 2 or earlier, at which point you could draw a huge chunk of your deck and win in any number of ways. Because of this combo, the card was given Power Level Errata, which read, choose a creature card in your hand, you may pay its mana cost reduced by up to 2, if you do, put that card into play, if you don't, put that card into your graveyard. This new wording prevented the creature from being put into play if you didn't also pay the card's cost reduced by up to 2. This stopped death triggers and enter the battlefield triggers from happening. By 2007 though, Wizards of the Coast was starting to undo some old Power Level Errata, as that wasn't the way they wanted to do things anymore, and Flash was one of the cards that was freed from its errata shackles. In the end, it wasn't too surprising that once they returned the card to its original functionality, it proved to be too powerful. So, starting in May of 2007, that original functionality was restored, and once again, the creature does enter the battlefield and then get sacrificed, even if you don't pay the cost of the card minus 2 generic mana. Obviously, if a creature has a powerful enter the battlefield or death trigger, it could once again be pretty effectively abused with Flash. And of course, this quickly proved to be the biggest problem when combined with Protean Hulk in Legacy. Just 4 days after the card was returned to its original functionality, there was a Legacy Grand Prix Columbus, which started on May 19th, 2007. Flash Hulk decks made up a massive part of the metagame, and ultimately 3 such decks made it into the top 8 of the event, including the deck that won the whole thing. Those 3 decks were more or less the same build, and we'll get to them shortly, but first, let's look at another variant of Flash Hulk that was making the rounds ahead of Grand Prix Columbus, but ultimately was played in smaller numbers for reasons that I'll explain. The combo this deck featured was really the first one to show up on the internet once it was announced Flash was being restored to its original functionality. So this deck only needed a single Protean Hulk trigger to get the job done. This is because even though the deck searched up a ton of creatures, they all had mana values of 0 or 1. So you could get a whole lot of bang for your buck. Once you flashed it into play, you would search up 4 Disciples of the Vault, 4 Phyrexian Marauders, and 4 Shifting Walls. Because you paid 0 mana for the X artifact creatures, they immediately go to the graveyard, and then each Disciple does 1 damage to your opponent for each of them, which does a total of 32 damage to your opponent. The deck also used a bunch of fast mana so that the combo could get going as quickly as possible. For example, the deck used Lotus Petal, Simian Spirit Guide, Elvish Spirit Guide, and Gemstone Caverns, and if you got the right opening hand, you could pull off this combo on turn 0. In other words, during your opponent's upkeep before you've actually taken your turn. If you had 2 copies from among Gemstone Cavern and the 2 Spirit Guides, you can make 2 mana, cast Flash, put Protean Hulk into play, and then search up your combo, and that was it. The deck could also pull it off pretty easily on turn 1, and turn 2 was relatively common. Obviously, you can't count on having a perfect opening hand every time where you get to go off on turn 0, so the deck also uses Worldly Tutor to search up Flash and Mystical Tutor to grab the Hulk. So why isn't this the version of the deck that found the most success at the event? Well, the main problem is how one-dimensional the deck is. The combo takes up a huge number of slots in the deck. Almost every card in the deck is Protean Hulk, Flash, Disciple of the Vault, a 0-mana artifact that comboed with the Disciple, a tutor, or fast mana. The deck runs only 8 lands, so that it can still fit in format staples like Force of Will and Daze, which were included to protect the combo. It also means that the deck had a ton of cards that are just dead draws, including pretty much every creature that's part of the combo. The deck could also run into problems if too many Disciples were drawn early in the game, as the kill becomes more challenging. In other words, the deck wasn't really capable of doing anything other than comboing off as soon as possible. So when you got that perfect hand, it was absolutely insane, but if you didn't manage to combo off on turn 0 or turn 1, you were probably just going to lose. So in the end, it turned out that the variant of the deck that didn't use the Disciple and artifact creatures was better for this particular event, as evidenced by the fact that 3 decks of this other variant finished in the top 8, and no versions of the deck using Disciple of the Vault did. So let's take a look at this other variant. First, let's take a look at the deck that won the Grand Prix, which was piloted by Steven Sadin. As you can see, this version of the deck only runs 12 creatures, and that's all it needs for a combo that wins the game. It doesn't go as hard on fast mana, so overall it tends to be a more consistent deck for when games do go long. Let's cover how this combo worked first before we dive into the other aspects of the deck. So obviously enough, the combo begins with Flash and Protean Hulk. Then you search up 2 creatures, Karmic Guide and Carrion Feeder. The Karmic Guide reanimates your sacrificed Protean Hulk, and then you can sacrifice it again to Carrion Feeder, and then you get to Death Trigger all over again, and this time you search up Kiki-Jiki Mirror Breaker. Then you use Kiki-Jiki to make a copy of Karmic Guide, and you sacrifice Kiki to Carrion Feeder. Then the guide reanimates Kiki-Jiki, and you are now in a loop that lets you make as many copies of Karmic Guide as you want, and obviously that means you swing for lethal. So this combo definitely has more moving parts than the Disciple of the Vault variant did. This means that it could be disrupted during the combo itself, not something you could do with Disciple of the Vault as the win condition. The deck also doesn't run the same amount of fast mana, so the earliest it can go off is turn 1. But while this version of the deck wasn't as capable of going off early and was easier to disrupt in some ways, it was also far more consistently assembled. And the fact you had all this other space in your deck was pretty important. This meant you could run all the legacy staples you needed to protect your combo, like Daze and Force of Will. You could also tutor up situational instants like Echoing Truth or Massacre. He even fit Dark Confidant in this version of the deck, which would draw you extra cards to find the combo faster. Steven Sadin's Grand Prix winning version of the deck was also unique in that it included the counter top combo, which could single-handedly lock the opponent out of the game, since you could just constantly reorganize the top cards of your library so that counterbalance would successfully counter spells your opponent casts. So in a lot of ways, this Grand Prix winning version of the deck was a control deck that had a combo kill, as opposed to an all-in combo deck. The other 2 versions of the deck to finish in the top 8 at the event were somewhat different, as you can see from Gadiel Slifer's version of the deck. The game-winning combo is pretty much the same, though the deck also includes Sylvan Safekeeper, a creature the Hulk can grab that is useful for protecting your combo pieces. But as you can see, this version of the deck doesn't bother with the countertop combo and instead leans a little more on disruption with 4 copies of Cabal Therapy. It also uses Limdul's Vault, which could help you find whatever combo pieces you were in need of. So yeah, Legacy was pretty much broken, and the deck utterly dominated this event as a result. And the scary thing was, the deck was actually just about to get even better. By the time of the event, Future Sight had just recently released, and it wasn't actually legal at Grand Prix Columbus. And that's probably a good thing, because if the Flash Hulk decks had access to Pact of Negation and Summoner's Pact, they would have been even more broken. Because you won the game in a single turn, you didn't have to worry about the downsides of these pacts. Summoner's Pact could find you your Hulk, and Pact of Negation gave the deck another free counterspell to protect the combo. The next banned and restricted announcement came on June 1st of 2007, and Flash was banned out of Legacy. The deck was too good, and it was warping the format into Flash Hulk decks and anti-Flash Hulk decks, and that is never where you want a format to be. Flash, of course, remains banned in Legacy today, and as a card, it reflects a pretty interesting change in the way that Wizards of the Coast decided to deal with cards that were too powerful. From 2007 on, they decided that they would rather ban cards and formats than completely change their functionality the way they had done with Flash back in 2000. Of course, we've seen them move away from that philosophy a little bit lately, like with the errata that was given to the companion mechanic. But anyway, that means that Grand Prix Columbus in 2007 was the only event where the powerful Flash Hulk deck was legal, and it has a well-deserved reputation as one of the most busted combo decks of all time. So, that's the history of the short-lived Flash Hulk deck. It's almost time for another limited set review, so as usual, this series will go on a short hiatus for a few weeks before returning on July 20th. Keep an eye on the community tab for a poll that will determine the topic of the next video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and share it so that others can enjoy it too. If you want to make sure you stay aware of future content, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to catch up on the 40+ episodes of Deck History, you should see a playlist on your screen shortly. Thanks for watching.